All right, super excited for this. I promised Destinee Martinez on the podcast, and now we have delivered. Destinee Martinez is here, and she loves softball so much, she turned it into a career. She's the National Director of Softball Operations at Perfect Game. Destinee, that's awesome. I know a whole lot of OU fans were excited for you when you were able to announce this. Kind of give us an outline of what this new gig is and kind of what you're doing around the country with the game.
Yeah. So Perfect Game, they were established about 25 years ago and specifically focused on baseball. So Perfect Game Baseball is pretty well known. They have tons of resources and ways to get guys to the draft. They're very successful in getting guys to college and then keeping up with them to get them to the draft. But they were interested in branching into softball. Obviously, softball, you don't have a draft that we get to prepare for yet. I know a few of my teammates are working on some of that too. But, there's not a draft or a professional league that you can really strive for. The next level is college. And so when they kind of tapped into softball, the opportunity was presented to me. And it only made sense. I spent the last 7 years working for USA Softball, and I love and appreciate that organization just as much as anything. But for me and my career and what I'm passionate about, it was more so with Perfect Game, I could be more hands-on with the athletes. And that's what I was really excited for. So what we're designing for the 22 season is we're rolling out some combines. And what that is it's basically just camps, I guess, less on the instructional side, but we're collecting a ton of measurables and putting it into a player profile, which essentially is going to be a one-stop shop for or for youth athletes to be identified by college coaches. And so in a sense that we just had our first event in Burlington, Iowa. There's a ton of talent in Burlington, Iowa, but I can almost guarantee you Coach Gasso probably isn't going to go to Burlington, Iowa to recruit. And that's okay. But it's pretty common for top coaches to, they have their recruiting schedules. They have their same cities that they're visiting and same tournaments that they're heading to, that there's a lot of talent that is missed out on. And so we're trying to fill that gap and provide a resource for girls nationwide to be identified no matter what team you play for. So I was fortunate enough to play on the Corona Angels in California. Marty Tyson's a great coach. He's almost like a feeder to a lot of top D1 programs. And there's a ton of teams like that. There's probably about 10 to 15 really good organizations, but then there's a lot of in between. And so getting to kind of assist with that and make sure that there's a platform for every girl to be identified is the end goal. And then the other thing that is super exciting, and you guys should probably get her on the podcast too, is Jessica Schultz is hired as the National Scouting Director. I brought her on just because our passions are aligned and we don't need the clout. We don't need the big names. We just want to be able to support. And so what we're able to do is now grow the network of individuals who want to give back to the sport, who want to stay in the sport. And unfortunately in softball, unless you're going to be a college coach, or you decide to give batting lessons, there's not a whole lot of in between. And so that's what Jess is getting to do, is grow that scouting network where now there's positions for people who are maybe former players in Kansas or former players, nationwide, wherever you are, we're providing another opportunity for them to help now give back to the game. They don't have to be giving lessons. They don't have to be on the field at all times, coaching or anything like that. It's sort of a different opportunity for jobs within the sport of softball. So brought on Jessica Schultz as the National Director of Scouting. And then obviously the goal with her would be to have some credible people under her. So if she were to see an athlete in the middle of Burlington, Iowa, and she called Coach Gasso and was like, hey, there's some talent here, Coach Gasso is probably going to listen. And so that's kind of some the route we want to take with who we bring on as a scout. And so whether if you're a former D2, D3 player, you're going to have that network of coaches that trust you as well. And so that's kind of what she's focusing on. And then I don't know, we haven't really announced this one, but I want to share. We hired
breaking news right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Big news. Wow.
Kelsey Arnold.
Yes. Great.
Yes, we hired her as a combine coordinator. So she will be over all of the combines, making sure everything is where it needs to be. All equipment is set. She's the techie guru. She's got the Rapsodo information. She knows how to operate all of that, all of the technology that we're utilizing. And then just as far as dealing with cities and all the logistics behind a combine, she gets to operate all of that. So I'm really excited to have her on board too.
That's great. And one of the things I think is so cool, especially from your era, is so many of your former teammates are involved in the game. Lauren's doing her thing, obviously. Erin's kind of doing it from the broadcasting side. You mentioned Jessica. You mentioned Kelsey Arnold now. There's just so many of you that are helping grow the game right now. How fulfilling is it in your role to where you can help out a 12-year-old, 13-year-old young athlete really grow their passion and their love of the game when it's as hot as it's ever been right now?
Yeah, no, that is extremely important. And honestly, that's why you do it. I think at that age, especially, is where you either draw kids in and get them to commit to pursuing their dreams of playing in college, or you lose them. And so really that age range from 12 to 14 years old is where I feel the most gratitude in getting to work with them. Because giving back to them and sharing your experience and sharing your knowledge and letting them know that it's okay, you may struggle here and you may struggle there. It's normal. So having a female driven organization now with the softball side of Perfect Game, that's really the end goal for all of the women that are on board, is just to give back to that age. Once you know you're 16, 17, 18, that age range is very more so, they're a lot more committed. And so it's really getting them to buy in from the time that they're 12, 13, and 14. And that's really where our passion lies.
Yeah, Iowa hasn't been a hotbed for OU softball recruiting in the past, but I mean, you're kind of trying to make it to where a girl and OU's such a national brand right now in the game, but if there's a girl that can really play in Iowa, maybe now she'll have an opportunity to come to Norman. But California has been a hotbed for OU recruiting.
Yeah.
You know that as well as anyone else. How did Patty get you to leave the West Coast and come all the way to OU?
You know what? So my recruiting experience, I knew I wanted to leave California. California was not it for me. And honestly, it sounds like it would be hard to leave California, but when you're a softball player in California, you are busy, busy, busy. You have every weekend to play softball. So it's not like I ever got to enjoy the beach. I never, like when I go home, it's like, we should go see the Hollywood sign. Like I'm a visitor when I go home, because those are things that I didn't get to do when I was little.
Yeah.
So leaving was not the problem. Coming to OU, I just remember when I was 14, I took a trip to Oklahoma for a national championship, or actually it was a qualifier. So we played at the Hall of Fame Stadium. It was a 14U qualifier, and I was playing on one of the top teams in the country. However, we couldn't figure out how to qualify. And we came to Oklahoma. They were giving away 8 berths to nationals, and we came all the way out here, and we lost 2 games in a row. Like we didn't, it was terrible. So we leave, and it was probably the worst experience leaving. So we get here, the flights were a mess. We lost all of our luggage. We lost our first 2 games. And then we leave, and we witness this horrible motorcycle accident. And from then on, I was literally like, I'm never coming back to Oklahoma. I don't want anything to do with Oklahoma. Like, this is awful. Yeah, it was terrible. And so then I start getting letters from Coach Gasso, like, come to the camps, come do this, come do that. And I told my mom, I remember, I was like, we had the worst experience there. It's just not for me to go to Oklahoma. And then we ended up going to, we had another trip in Kansas City, or in Oklahoma City, I think the next year. And that's when Coach Gasso asked if I would take a trip before the tournament started, if I would just see the campus. And when I saw the campus, I'm sure you've heard this before, it just feels like home.
Sure.
And so the one thing that set my parents off was the fact that Coach Lombardi at the time had her bassinet in her office. And my mom, for Gianni, and my mom was like, you know what, this is a family. We feel that it's home. And I think that you kind of just belong here. And so after that trip, we had the full week of games. And then right when the tournament was over, I committed. So
Wow.
it happened really fast. I had no intentions on coming back to the state just from my previous experience. But yeah, it felt like home when I visited the campus. So it was good.
I'm curious what a recruiting pitch from Patty sounds like. And she's probably always been able to do this, but more so now it's, hey, do you want to win a conference championship? Okay. Do you want to go to Oklahoma City? Yeah. Do you want to win a national championship? Well, this is probably the best place for you.
Yeah.
And obviously the program had success before you got there. But what did the campus felt like home, and that was a big thing. But what was Patty's recruiting pitch to you when she was trying to get you to OU?
You know what? It was more so just the connection we had on a relationship basis. It wasn't she didn't have to convince me of anything. Really, I think the one time I was really convinced was I also took a trip to the University of Washington. And on that trip, Kaylani was there.
Oh, okay.
And so Kaylani and I were both at the University of Washington, and I think about a week later, maybe, she had committed to Oklahoma. And I just remember my dad saying, do you want to hit off of that kid or do you want to go play behind her? And so Kaylani going to Oklahoma kind of solidified the deal for me too. But, dealing with Coach Gasso, she's not a seller, or she wasn't then there. And like you said, there really wasn't much to sell, accolades wise or success wise. But I think it was more so the relationship and the passion she has behind what she does that was really appealing. I think even it being less of a sell was more welcoming to somebody. I wasn't a home run hitter. I was a slapper and outfielder. And so it's not like I had tons of schools knocking on my doors because I'm the best shortstop in the world or, a home run hitter. So I think her genuine love for the sport and passion for the organization, I think, is what really sold me.
So Destinee and I are having this conversation. We're less than 2 hours away from OU opening things up at the Mary Nutter Classic. 95-2 so far is how much they've outscored their opponents through 10 games. It's ridiculous, Destinee. I mean, I'll just open it up to you. What are your thoughts on this year's OU softball team? The numbers speak for itself, but what have you seen?
It's incredible. The amount of power in that lineup, so on my first trip to Iowa, we had one of the scouts that was with us. She was saying how, in 2013, she was a coach at Ohio State at the time. She's like, that was the best lineup I think I've ever seen. And I was like, well, have you seen this year's? Because this is insane. It's just incredible how much power and I think honestly now it's traditional and it's the legacies that are left and the passion that has been created from even before I got there. The love for the program has always been there. And now there's just a winning, it's a winning program. And so that has turned into a tradition that I feel like you step in there and you're just expected to work hard and be great. And it almost comes natural to a lot of these girls. I know they work their butts off, but that goes to everybody works their butts off at that level. So I think I'm ready for Jocelyn's first at bat today. We'll see how that goes. And if it's not the first one, I guarantee it'll be this weekend. But I'm excited for them.
Yeah, it's the biggest story in the sport right now, Jocelyn chasing the record. But I want to ask about Lauren. Erin was on the previous episode talking about how, what she thought her role was during that home run chase, being her, such a good friend to her.
Yeah.
And it doesn't surprise anybody. It certainly doesn't surprise me, but how Lauren has handled all of this is just remarkable. She's been so gracious. She did like a 30-minute Zoom with the OU media. I think she's in California this weekend to witness everything. It's just really cool because that was her record. But now that record is going to be broken by another OU softball player. Just how cool she has been during this whole process and probably being Jossie's biggest fan at this point.
Yeah, she definitely has handled it extremely well. And I think that's just goes to show the type of program that has been built is it's more so not the selfishness of, oh, my title's about to be stripped, but it's more so that title is going to somebody else in our organization that is also a stud who has worked just as hard and who is very deserving. Lauren is a big advocate on female success. So whatever the story is, I know Lauren's just a huge supporter of it. And, I think it makes it 10 times better that it is still in the OU program. I don't know how she would handle it if it was not.
Yeah.
But, I agree. She's handling it very well, and she's very supportive, and it's very genuine. And I think that's really cool for Jocelyn to get to experience as well.
And if that's not the biggest story, Jordy Ball is. What would you tell her right now? I mean, she's been so dominant up to this point, no earned runs, but she's also just a true freshman. And though it probably doesn't seem like it right now, she is going to face adversity at some point. So when you come out of the gate like this, is there any sort of advice that you would tell her as she gets ready for a long career at OU?
I think the only thing would be, this is a game of failure. You're not always going to be at your best, and you are going to have a time where you struggle and you need help and you can talk to people. I think that is one thing that for every college freshman is to understand that this is a game of failure. Yeah, you can come hot. You can come in hot out of the gates and be as successful as she has been, but there's going to be times where she's not feeling her best. And it's okay to accept that and kind of sit back and reflect on what changes need to be made, what adjustments you should be looking for, and even to talk to the coaches. I think that was one thing I kind of lacked is I wasn't a talker. Mm-hmm. I was more of like a in my own head type of person. But I think just for her to know that you play a game of failure and it's okay to talk about it. So seeking help, advice, extra work, that stuff is always available at OU, and definitely capitalize on it when you get to that point.
I love the character and personality of this team, especially a couple outfielders they have right now, Lou Donahue and Jada Coleman. And as an outfielder yourself, how much fun has it been to see, Lou make a great catch in left field and like punch the wall, and Jada, she's just such a flashy player. How much fun has that been to watch really this entire outfield with so much depth?
I am obsessed with those two. Jada, I have become so obsessed with her, like I should calm down, because she has been so fun to watch. And she is a true triple threat, which I was not. So I was more slapper, bunt, get on base, steal some bases. And she can hit for power. And I think that that's really what I love most is she can throw everybody off. She can hit for power, and she can just control the entire outfield. And that's really what I love, her passion. Same thing with Donahue, just how loud they are, how vocal, how fun they make the game. I love this outfield. And I think that Jada and Donahue just have so much time to grow. And they started at the best. So, and it's crazy to think that they could still get better because they've started where they were at. So, I think it'll be interesting to see how they all grow, and the program overall, the roster, the whole team overall is just tremendous. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun year.
2013 national champ. You were all tournament team in that World Series as well. But what are you most proud of from your career at OU?
Oh, there's a
lot.
It's a
tough one, I know.
Yeah. I think I'm most proud of the women that we've all turned into. I think just the relationships I've kept with like Lauren and now Jess and Kelsey, and we've got an alumni group text that is just so passionate and wanting to do things for the program. And winning national championships are great. They're a lot of fun. There's something to remember forever. You get a nice ring out of it. But it's more so the relationships that are built within your time there. And I think that everybody that got to be a part of it has really capitalized on being the best woman that they can be. And that's in any capacity, whether it's you went the route of youth coaching or lessons, or you took on a profession, or like Aaron is broadcasting, and I know Amber Flores is in Seminole State, Brittany Williams is coaching, so everybody has stayed dedicated to the game and has become really great leaders in the sport. And I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of. I think one thing that just being a part of the program, my faith was made bigger. I guess I was baptized in Coach Gasso's swimming pool.
Wow.
So just yeah, very very cool. So things like that, I think, just characteristic traits are huge. But I think off the field is what I'm most proud of, probably.
Yeah. I don't know how UCLA or Alabama or Florida feels, but if I were associated with those programs, I'd be really worried right now because OU's already been dominant here, just a dominant stretch recently, but a new stadium's coming. They're going to the SEC soon. I think that that's going to open up even more opportunities. I don't I don't see this program slowing down anytime soon, Destinee. And I think you could probably make a pretty strong argument that maybe, even though it's crazy to think, maybe the best days are still ahead for the softball program.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with that statement. I think that there's, um, going to the SEC, people are going to have opposite views because they're not used to that much talent in conference and blah, 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 blah. But I think the thing that goes to show that they can compete in the SEC is the fact that they're in the World Series every year with those teams, and they're beating those teams. And so, yeah, it might be a little bit tougher earlier in the season for them, but Oklahoma State has really stepped up. Texas has produced some good teams, and so it's not like they're not getting any competition. And I know some people are acting like once they go to the SEC, it's going to be blowout after. Like that's not. I don't think that's the case at all. Oklahoma State has been a true challenge lately. Texas has been great, and I think that once we get to the SEC, it may be a adjustment, and competition may have to. And that's the other thing too. I was going to say competition may need to step up sooner in the season, but that's the other thing. I think Coach Gasso does a really good job of making sure that no matter who you're playing at your best. And so I truly believe that once we get to the SEC, they're going to be fine. It sounds a little intimidating, but I think it'll be good for the program, and it's only going to make them better and stronger.
She's Destinee Martinez, National Director of Softball Operations at Perfect Game. She's also the best to ever wear 00 at OU. All right. I'm giving you that distinction because I think it's absolutely true, probably in each sport. Destinee, thank you so much for joining the podcast. And I know we're all excited to kind of what Perfect Game does here in the future. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. That was